touched on an unpublished book which is started in 2018, who has the protagonist within it from my award-winning novel Fees of Death, which was based on the Kingfield murders in Barbados. And I decided to come share this part of this story with her and the audience. And actually having a great feeling that authors out here writing these kind of stories, and that they could be actually a total array of great stories coming in different ways. So mainly tonight we were hearing about sexual violence against women, and that horrible part of human trafficking. But within this story, I would like to touch on child slavery and child sex trafficking and organ harvesting. So I would introduce you to the protagonist investigator, Neil the X-Man Boys, who, after reading some reports of the island being warned about being heaven for human trafficking, the horrible crime organ harvesting had reached the country. So I'll give you a touch. I read you from chapter 4. The title of the novel is The Refuge, and it's a crime thriller based in Barbados as well. So it begins like this from chapter 4. My personal office at Special Homicide Division was situated at Central Station Bridgetown, but I was at home when a call came from a sergeant relaying a message from Assistant Commissioner of Police Leslie Rowe. He ordered I visit the discovery of a body at Christ Church. It wasn't gun related, nevertheless, it was immediately requested. The last two occasions Rowe requested my presence, I was assigned to investigate the Kingfield murders and capture the Grecian serial killer Vladimir Kentos. The other was a case of extrajudicial killing by police. They were the most difficult and discomforting cases I ever had. The village I entered was set on the fringes of a highway where a sharp turn led into a sophisticated housing development built with fair-sized bungalows all painted cream and pink. It was called Coverley. On entry to one of the paved streets, there was a cul-de-sac with foliage and huge stones blocking the pathway. A line of police vehicles were there, and Assistant Police Commissioner Rowe was parked near the crime scene. That wasn't his style at all, for he was a high-ranked policeman, a top cop, and my mentor. So this had to be important. I exited my SUV, leaving it roughly 10 meters away from the crime scene. The day was slightly overcast, and I double-checked the safety of my weapon and concealed it, then approached his car. Good evening, ACP, how are you? Sir, received your call. What's the case here? I'm okay, X. You good? He was a serious but cordial man. I truly respected him. He continued, not sure. And that's why I want your assessment, Superintendent. This is unthinkable. I looked up at the scene ahead where a crowd gathered. What's that, sir? I turned back to him and he jutted his head towards the victim, not far away, partially covered with a white sheet. I began to walk towards the corpse when he said behind me, organ trade. I continued walking towards the body. I was greeted by a forensic officer, forensic officers, one lifting the white sheet for me as I ducked under the yellow tape. My first observation was it was a young victim, probably a young teen. Dear God, a boy. Light complexion with curly brown hair, he was biracial, and his body was partially bruised. On his abdomen, I observed a closed scar. It was swollen and seeping fluids. It seemed recently stitched up, and probably was the injury that took his life. That's when I remembered Rose's words, also a newspaper article, which included organ harvesting quite lately. I stooped to take a better look while putting on plastic disposable gloves. On close inspection, I noticed the body was branded on the inside of the upper arm near the armpit. The corpse laid supine. On peering closer, it seemed the scar tissue was probably burnt from a hot iron or laser that distinctly marked the letter L. Methodically, someone had branded the boy for ownership, like a slave. It was the first time I ever witnessed anything like it on the victim's body, added to wounds left on the victims of the serial killer Vladimir Kentos. I described them in my own words as symbolic lacerations. The possibility exists that whoever did it was responsible for this boy's murder. It surely seemed like a case of human trafficking. He must have bled out profusely. For some inexplicable reason, his corpse was dumped here. I sighed and shook my head in disbelief, thinking there was no crime beyond Barbados. Seemingly, the tentacles of human trafficking had stretched this side of the globe. Shortly afterwards, I walked back to ASP Rose's vehicle. He was reading a document and seemed calm as usual. However, before he could say much, "Sir, his kidney was removed." He held a hand and stopped me, then said, "This investigation is yours, Superintendent. It's a priority. I need you to find who did it, X." And as Assistant Commissioner Rose spoke, the gut feeling was my first investigation on human trafficking would be a living nightmare. And that's it.
Thanks for sharing, man.